Guess who's back? Back again. I'm watching you from across the room.
Okay, so it's been a while now.
Uh-huh.
It's been quite a while. We took the entire summer off.
I was on vacation in Rock and Neck.
Yeah, it's Dirty Laundry, Joey Clifton.
And Meatball.
And here we are, high atop the Silver City Ballroom in downtown Meriden.
Mm-hmm.
And good thing it's fall now. It's September 27th, Friday.
Cooling off.
Yeah, because we have no air conditioning on the third floor here, and it gets quite hot in the studio. So we didn't really miss much. I mean, if we just do a quick recap of the summer, we had shootings.
Uh-huh.
We had a couple of shootings, right? We had Life and the Panhandlers.
Oh, that was a big thing.
Whole life, yeah, on my Where's Polo vibe with my OG panhandling sign. Yeah, it's whole life.
I talked to him. He was pretty intelligent.
He's everybody that I know who actually had a conversation with him said he's very intelligent.
Right.
He knows what he's doing. And you know what?
Right.
If you know how to market yourself, and this was his particular way of doing it,
More power to him.
more power to him. And it got a lot of people really angry. But anyway, what else? We got a couple new businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We got Crispy Country Chicken, which is actually the New York Deli in Meriden Commons 1, which just opened, I think, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday they had their ribbon cutting. And we had Mojitos over on Camp Street,
Yeah.
Sports Bar, which is really good. They're open like Wednesday through Sunday, I think. They have an awesome happy hour.
Uh-huh.
Who else? Who else opened? Well, our sponsor for this episode, La Pablanitas, right across the street from the ballroom. They've been open for, I think, since 2013, but they just opened up a dining room next door.
They expanded.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a little bodega, but they had really good food, and a lot of people didn't realize that you could go through to the back of the store and get a good burrito. They have really good seafood quesadillas.
Go and check it out.
And so now they expanded next door, and now they actually have a dining room, so you have a place to sit.
And
you
they
can
have a ribbon
small-
cutting coming up.
Yeah. When is that?
October
hold
8th,
on.
I believe.
October 8th from 5 to 6 p.m. I believe that's it.
I'll be there eating those McNuggets.
McNuggets? No, they don't have McNuggets there. Yeah, it's 5 to 6, October 8th, ribbon cutting. Go down there and check it out. Talk to Gina, the owner. They make really good food. I like the chorizo burritos.
Uh-huh.
If you want to be a sponsor, dirtylaundryct@gmail.com. And you know what time it is now?
What time is it?
It is election time. That's my MSNBC election music. So we figured it was a good time to start Dirty Laundry back up again. We're done with the whole summer, kind of get back into that whole winter.
It's excellent time.
It's excellent time. So we want to get as many candidates on the show as possible.
Yeah?
Because let me tell you, when our first guest here announced his candidacy, boy, did Meriden Talks light up like crazy.
Oh, Facebook.
We have in the studio former councilman, former mayor of Meriden, Mike Rohde.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Wait, I
Hello.
should give him some. There it is. Yeah. Hi, Mike.
Nice to be with you.
Mike, you have the reputation of you would go to the opening of a zipper. That's what I heard, because every time something opens in Meriden, you are there. And somebody said that. He would go to the opening of a zipper.
Right.
I was a 7-day-a-week mayor when I was mayor, and I would try to go to as many things as I could to promote the city, thank businesses for opening up, and give a helping hand, let them know we're there for, city's there for their support. So yeah, I did an awful lot of those. I think I stopped counting at 1,500 at one point.
Does your wife get mad at you? She's like, I don't want to go out tonight. Usually it's the other way around.
I guess she doesn't mind me being out of the house. She has her own life to do things and have fun, so it works.
All right, I'm going to give a little background on you. Well, it's not a little background. I'm going to try and get through this as fast as I can, because this took me hours to figure out. All right,
Go.
You tell me whether I'm right or wrong, or if I miss anything. You've got a BA in economics and psychology, a master's in human services administration. You went to John Fisher College. You were the director of, you are the director of community relations at the Community Health Center since 2011.
Correct.
You were the mayor from 2008 to 2013. You were city council when?
1989 to when I became mayor.
Till 2008. You were the director of Cove, a nonprofit supporting children who had a parent or a sibling die. 28 years at the Curtis Home as director of children's programs, director of community, corporate, and government relations. You were the president of the Connecticut Child Caring Association, chairman of the Connecticut Association of Human Services. You were the vice chair of Connecticut Commission on Children. Your leadership roles at the American Cancer Society for the Relay for Life. You are on the Puerto Rican Day Festival Parade, the Dr. Martin Luther King Scholarship Breakfast, the Meriden Black Expo, Project Graduation, Meriden Farmers Market. You established the Linear Trails. You founded the Flood Control Implementation Agency. You're in. I vote for you. Did I miss anything?
A few things, but
probably
that's
a
good
bunch.
enough for now.
What made you, I guess the most important thing is, being that you spent so many years on city council, you were so many years as mayor, why on earth would you want to get back into this again?
Why?
Good question. It's something I hadn't anticipated, quite honestly. My life has been very full and gratifying, and I've been spending a lot of time doing a lot of things you didn't mention, but things that are important to the community. And so all was good. My wife is retired, so we were traveling more, and so I thought that was it. But then we had a last-minute person drop out who was our at-large candidate,
Right.
which left a huge hole in our ticket. I didn't see really anybody stepping up who had name recognition, especially in short notice, to run a campaign in a month and a half. And, I put half my adult life into politics in the city and community leadership, and I think we're on the cusp of really some great things, and I just want to make sure we continue the momentum. So that was a large part of it. But the other piece was Bob Williams, who's on the council, is running for the council.
Right.
And if he wins, he quits one of his positions, and his cronies handpick someone to go in his place.
Right. So he's on the board. He's on the council right now in Area 4. He wants to run at large because Walter Shamik is leaving.
Correct.
So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 thing.
Correct.
If he gets it.
Correct.
Now, I think Bob Williams said in the Record Journal that if it was you in place of him, you wouldn't have a problem with that. But because it's not you and it's him, now there's an issue. I mean, is there a rule? Obviously, there's no rule against it, right?
Apparently not. I've never heard of it happening. It's the first time it's ever happened in Meriden. Now, it's happened to Board of Education, to a council, a different body, but for the same body to run for the same seat.
Right.
I've never heard of it happen. I don't think I'd go for it. It just seems so undemocratic and devious, because it becomes a selection, not an election when you do that. So it just, that was sort of the deciding factor that, no, he's not going to just walk away with this. If he's going to get it, he's going to have to earn it. And I think I can bring to the table my experience and accomplishments to give a good run.
Well, and I mean, if you look at the parties, okay, so you've got your Republican Party and your Democratic Party. The We the People is basically Republican. The Libertarians are basically Republican. All right, if you're a Libertarian or We the People, you probably took offense to me saying that. But the fact of the matter,
you don't vote Democratic.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, if there's a Republican running for one seat, the We the People won't run somebody up against them. And if there's somebody from We the People, the Republicans won't. So it's the same party. So you've got 3 parties against one. But traditionally speaking, Meriden is always Democrat, always has the Democratic majority in everything.
2-1.
Yeah. Do you see a difference this year than former years? I mean, you've run quite a few campaigns through the years.
Yeah, I've had 9 campaigns.
So I can roll that back
The issues
question.
are pretty similar. I mean, we have our values and our platforms and what we believe in. The opposition has theirs. And as you say, it's hard to tell a difference between a Republican or We the People. We the People has 32 registered members. Mm-hmm. So they're basically a protest party. They were started by Carabetta family years ago to try to cut back on their taxes that they pay. And it's basically the no tax crowd that wants to fight every project that comes along. So that's pretty much what their history has been.
Well, and I've seen like for this year, Democrats are basically running on two things: economic development and housing. Republicans are focused on local budget and taxes. But I think everybody's kind of focused on all four of those things.
Right.
You know, I don't like when local politics does party lines, because I think in local politics it really shouldn't matter what party you're from. It's who you are, what you've done for the city, what you want to do for the city, and who votes for you. It really doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. I don't think. Now, I'm sure a lot
Not
of
as much as on the national stage.
right.
For sure.
A lot of people, the younger generation that's just getting into politics now, I could see it being an issue for them because maybe they see a future for themselves. Maybe they end up wanting to be, state senators or go to Congress, go to Senate, maybe president one day.
Hopefully.
So everything that they do from that first time they realize that they're a politician is important. But for your generation, I think it's easier to see where you're coming from and what you want to do because you truly have the city interest in mind. Because let's face it, you're not going to be president one day. I mean, well, Bernie might have a shot. So you might have it. I mean, you got a couple of years on you, plenty. So I want to hit you with Meatball has a couple of the reactions from Facebook when you announced that you were going to run.
Yeah.
Meriden Talks kind of blew up with some of your past stuff, some of your future stuff. So
Right.
what do you got there, Meatball?
So one of the questions, going back to the previous question, is why do you think you lost to Santos? What was the voter sentiment on that?
And I think you lost by what, like 400? It wasn't much.
300 and change.
Yeah.
There are a number of factors that went into that. I think a lot of the projects that we had underway, the massive green project, the flood control and renovation, hadn't really happened yet. We've been talking a lot about it. So we were literally kind of stuck in the mud with that. They really hadn't materialized.
Like empty promises.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I don't know that people saw all the work it took to get 25 years worth of effort to
Right.
make it all happen and, multi-million dollars worth. So I think that was part of it. So I think there's somewhat of a change, people on something different. I didn't run a very good campaign, to be quite honest with you. I was busy, doing my mayor's job, and I had some other things going
Your
on.
million committees that you're on.
Yeah, so I have to say I didn't put a whole lot of effort into it, and maybe apathy on my part a bit, and maybe even so upon the voters. We saw the Democratic votes been going down steadily. So I think that factored in.
But do you think is that sentiment coming back? Because you can hear a lot of whining about the taxes and expenses, and we're spending so much money. Do you think that's leaning more towards Republican and we the people away from the Democrat Party?
Well, Republicans are always anti-tax. They always
Right.
say Democrats tax and spend, and that's their whole platform.
Right.
I say you need to make reasonable and prudent investments in your community. For example, let's say we didn't do the high schools. There's some Republicans, don't do the high schools. Just put a Band-Aid on it, throw another blue tarp over the moldy ceilings and stuff. A lot of them said that. And we decided, no, we needed to take the bull by the horns. A lot of
Yes.
them said, don't do affordable housing. We don't want any more affordable housing. Well, to take the mills down, you had to do affordable housing, or the feds do not allow you to do that.
Right. Well, one of the things, not to cut you off, but one of the things that I always was against all of the new housing that's been being built in the downtown area. My theory was, how can you expect a business to move into downtown that might serve a $25 steak when the people across the street are on fixed income and Section 8 and affordable housing and can't afford that? It can't support it. And I was sitting at the coffee shop with you one day,
Right.
and you explained to me in a very simple, easy way why the housing is good for downtown.
Yes. So the old model was put all the poor in large brick buildings, publicly operated, publicly run. That's been a failed system across the country. We know that. So little by little across the country, that gave way to a new model, which was private ownership, private management, mixed income, which means you have market rate and middle rate and lower rate in the same building, and some commercial business activity on the first floor.
Right.
That's a totally different model. So those people who say you just replaced the mills, no, we did not.
Right.
That's a fallacy, and they need to get their facts straight.
Well, you took hundreds of Section 8 families, moved them out of downtown, replace them with maybe the same amount of apartments, but now you've got mixed income. The mixed income is police, firemen, nurses, teachers,
healthcare workers.
I mean, you're talking whatever the percentage is. There were 3 tiers.
Yes.
And it's a very small amount in the Meriden Commons and all the buildings going up. That's really Section 8.
Everyone has to have a decent income to live there. The average salary is between $50,000 and $60,000 a household salary over there. So it's a really different ballgame than when it used to be. So I think people need to get the facts out. We like to call it workforce housing because, again, the vast majority of people living there work. And what we're finding is people are looking for this type of housing that's affordable, that's nice, that's up to code, that's near public transportation.
Right.
And that's what we're providing. And we're ahead of the curve along the commuter line for most other cities. Some are just trying to get on board now with some housing that they're trying to throw together.
Right.
We're already there and on our way. So marriage is really setting itself up for the future. So the millennials, the empty nesters, people who don't want to have a car and just want to use public transportation and take advantage of living next to a park, and as the other amenities come on board, as they certainly will with a critical mass of people, that's the future of our city. And I asked the other side, well, what's your vision? I mean, anybody can criticize. I mean,
right.
Everybody has a belly button and everybody can criticize. And I always say, well, okay, what do you have to offer? What's your plan? What's your vision? And if I hear, well, we're not going to raise taxes. That's our vision.
Right.
Oh, really? So you're going to have a ghost town in about 10 years is what
Right.
it's going to come down to. So you need to make prudent investments. You need to do things that are going to move your city forward and make it a place where people want to come to. It has some excitement, some vitality, something new and interesting. And certainly we've done that over the last few years.
Yeah. Well, I think people wouldn't, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. I think people wouldn't mind spending if their mill rate was going down, if their property taxes were going down, if they saw some light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean, let's face it, with the governor that we have now, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know what party I'm affiliated with anymore. And you know what? I'd rather not be affiliated with any party. I'd rather be affiliated with a person. And you see, if you're going to run for city council, and this is one of my questions I want to ask all the candidates, if you're supposed to run off of your constituents' ideas and thoughts. So you might, let's just say I run for city council, and the reason why I'm running is I really don't like the city doing something, and I want to get on there and I want to change that. I want to keep that from happening. Well, if I talk to all my constituents and they want to see that happen, even though I don't, I have to put my feelings aside and do what the people that voted me in for want me to do. And I don't think you get a lot of that. You don't,
I think that's overly simple. So there's some of the walk cards I'm looking at from our opponents say, do what the voters want you to do. Okay, so 10 voters call you up. 5 say do this and 5 say do the opposite.
Right.
What do?
You do what's best for the city in your mind.
Correct. So it comes down to taking all that in, obviously, and making a decision based on what you think is best.
Right.
When I started flood control, I was the only name on that council resolution. When I started the implementation agency, that was a little vehicle that made this all happen over the last 25 years, I was the only name that started that, okay? I didn't have people clamoring for Mike, you got to fix flood control. But I figured out if we did not fix it, we are dead as a city. We
Right.
are dead in the water. Hadn't had a new building in 50 years, and my God, if we can fix that, that sets the stage. Now, I didn't realize how much it would set the stage when TOD comes in and the governor joins hands with us, and
Right.
then new apartments and the mills came down. I mean, those are all kind of secondary things that happened because of what we did. So part of it is you're a leader. I've been a leader, whether it's an elected leader or a community leader in tons and tons of organizations. Always trying to make things better, always trying to do things sometimes a little further ahead of the crowd, but trying to push things in a good direction.
Well, and I think the public always has to have this, thought in the back of their mind. The green, which is really a flood control, that is probably the largest contribution to the city in probably 50 years. And right up until last year, until they finally fixed Pratt Street and emptied the storm drains and got it to not flood anymore. Right up until last year, there were still plenty of people that were trashing the whole idea. Why did we spend all this money? What do we need a bridge that goes nowhere for? What do we need this? But you know what? So many people enjoy that park. Right. And just the idea of killing two birds with one stone. You fix the flooding. No more flooding downtown. Not once in the last year have I seen one picture of a flood. They joke on Meriden Talks about the Ark. And now it's just kind of like a non-existent joke. I mean, they still use it, but it doesn't make any sense anymore because it's never flooded since then. There's so many things going on the green all summer long that, you always have to have in the back of your mind. Somebody might come up with an idea that they want to implement. Sounds like a horrible idea, but you got to be able to think outside the box and look at the possibilities of something. Yeah. And it took... It took the green being there for a good year before people really started realizing, hey, you know what, this was probably the best contribution in the last 50 years.
And they still are. I mean, leaders should lead, okay?
Right.
And I've always felt that leadership makes the world go round. Good or bad, leadership is the key. And I look at situations that have gone bad and situations have gone well, and usually it correlates to good or bad leadership.
Right.
When I was involved in the chairman of the first linear trail, the mayor was against it because he lived up above the ridge. The neighbors were against it. The environmentalists were against it. Oh, the most terrible idea we ever thought of, putting a trail along the river, blah, blah, blah. We did it anyway. Mm-hmm. And some of the most ardent critics came to me personally and said, Mike, you were right. Because we got people walking, it's safe, we can get back in there and put the fish in the river, which we couldn't do before. Elderly could use their walkers on this place. I mean, so I'm not afraid to take on the critics, and probably more so than I should. My wife says, just let it go. No. If someone's putting garbage out there or lies or distortions, I'm one that want to take it on. Okay. You want to get into it? Let's get into it. Let's see what the facts really say.
All right. On that note, Meatball.
Yeah.
Read some of the critics from Facebook.
Right. Speaking of elderly, Linda DeWolf wants to know, how come you block anyone that opposes your view? You kind of dismiss them and block them on Facebook.
Well, the critics can have their way. It's anonymous in a lot of ways. What I find is if I get into a discussion, I'm going back and forth. I think you usually find me at the initial phases of those things, trying to put the facts out and make a point of view.
Right.
Then they start calling names and all that kind of stuff. That's where I bail out. I mean, it's... by and large, if someone wants to have a rational discussion, put your points out there, be rational about it.
Right.
I'm good. But as soon as they start throwing mud and throwing dirt, I'm out of there. And you know who these people are, and you know what they say. And I'm not the only person that blocks them. You just get fed up. It's just a ridiculous situation to put yourself in, to be constantly arguing with people who don't have the facts, couldn't care less about the facts, and are just trying to, cause trouble.
Well, and I think I personally like Facebook for political reasons, because when did you ever have a day where you could actually be writing to somebody who's running for your local city council and actually get an answer out of them? Right. And they have that opportunity with you. They could say something about you, and when you're on there, it means you want to set the facts straight. And somebody can debate with you back and forth. But like you said, once the disrespect starts coming in, then nobody gets anywhere, and what's the point?
Right. Another question comes from Edward McCarthy. He, meaning you, is afraid of the poor policies that were put into place during his years in office. He's running on self-preservation when he should be retiring and moving south.
The policies that I had while in office, well, first of all, as a mayor, you work with the city council and you work with the city manager. So any policies that come out usually are debated and discussed and kind of run through the system. So the fact that I could control all of that, it'd be nice if I could, but I couldn't. Mm-hmm. Number two, he doesn't name any of them. So, okay, tell me what policies you're talking about. You want to talk about affordable housing, workforce housing? You want to talk the flood project? You want to talk the schools? What do you want to talk about? Well, none of that comes out. As far as me going to Florida, it's turning into a swamp, and I like to visit there in February, as I do, but no thanks. And I will not have someone like Ed McCarthy, who I haven't heard of a single thing that this guy's ever done for this community, come out and tell me what I should do. So, yeah, I get a little testy with people like that. I mean, to me, there are doers and talkers. Talkers are cheap. They can say anything they want and so
Right.
forth. Doers are few and far between. And if you look at my record of what I've done in this community for the last 25 years, I've been at the helm of a lot of important things and still am. I love doing that kind of thing. And I get involved with things where I can make things happen. So bring it on, but be prepared because you're going to have to demonstrate that you contribute. And I often ask, well, what have you done? Or what is your plan?
Right.
And it's usually silence on the other side.
Well, it brings up a good point, though. If you look at the positive of that comment, was there anything that you wanted to implement that you didn't get a chance to do, or maybe you got it up to a vote and it didn't go through?
I think the one thing that I championed that went away because of the person I lost to was the notion that we're in a partnership with our community, and the community being the nonprofit organizations, the cultural organizations. I had a fund called the Special Events Fund, and we would give a helping hand to the Puerto Rican Festival or the Black Expo or different events like that, that really were a heart of our city, different aspects of our city. Because the city, when a nonprofit runs an event, they got to pay for police. They got to pay for insurance. It's very expensive to run these operations. You saw in South Meriden, they were almost going to lose their festival out there, their winter festival, because insurance came up. They had an incident and didn't have insurance, and it caused all kinds of problems. That's something I feel bad that went away, because I know it hurt a lot of organizations who are out there, volunteers, trying to make the city better, and the city lately virtually nothing to help them in many ways. So that was something that I thought was wrong, and hopefully in the future we can take another look at that. Things are bubbling up. We're seeing a lot of organic volunteerism come up, the beautification committee, farmers market, and so forth. A lot of all volunteers are out there helping. I just think the city could do more. And I'll give you an example. So we did the Yule Fest last year. We're doing it at the same time that the city's putting on the lights in Hubbard Park.
Right.
City's done lights in Hubbard Park for umpteen 20, 30, 40 years. Brings in 90,000 cars a year. Their staff is involved putting lights up for months and months. And it's nice, but we don't get a single dime from it. Most of the people that come are not even from Meriden.
Right.
And here we are trying to promote the downtown, and we got elderly people up on ladders trying to put up the Christmas wreaths on the poles and string lights and so forth and decorate the trees. And I'm saying, couldn't we take some of that resource we have that's going to Hubbard Park and redirect it down to the city where we could make it a wow factor and get people down there and see what's happening?
Right.
That's my point. And I can give you a lot of examples like that we're not asking for the world. We're just asking for that partnership. Because if these volunteers on their own time are willing to go out there and give all of this, I would expect the city could at least meet them halfway. Take the flowers program. We got flowers donated. A friend of mine owns a nursery, gave us
Casartano.
3 change outs of flowers, right? All volunteers putting them in.
Yep.
For the watering program, it was a difficult task. So we had a little old lady with some cans of water going up and down the sidewalk. The city's got a water truck. I mean, how tough would it be to redirect the water truck down that street a few times to keep the waters in place?
Right.
They have the resources to do it. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying throw all kinds of money at. I mean, they're talking about. We had to go out and raise money for the St. Patrick's Day parade to get money to paint the green line down the street and hire the cops and whatever else we never had to do that before.
Right.
I mean, really?
What about taking money from the Daffodil Festival?
Well,
or is that a whole nother topic?
That's a whole other topic.
But
But it is a signature event for the city. It's put us on the map for sure.
Yeah.
We get a lot of people downtown. The parade is great. The crafters come in. A lot of things for the kids. So, it is a phenomenal event. But the city's putting a lot of money into that and not some of these other things. I mean, the Puerto Rican Festival, I got involved with that a number of years ago to really bring it back strong. And for the 50th anniversary, we flew in 11 musicians from Puerto Rico, spent a fortune to have a big event. We had 8,500 people in the park, probably too many because we didn't have a single incident, and the problems were all outside the park with parking everywhere.
Yeah,
but in the park itself, everything was fine. Great atmosphere and so forth. That is a bigger event inside the park in the band shell than the Daffodil is.
Right.
Yet we're spending $8,000 on cops that we have to pay for and all the rest of it. So I'm just saying, let's get a little balance going here.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible. I just think we need some leadership and vision to let people know why it's important and make it happen. And you get things you don't expect. So at the last Puerto Rican festival, they have these little Jeeps come in. If you've seen the Jeep clubs that the Puerto Ricans ride,
Yep.
They trick them up and everything. And we must have had 35 or 40 of them. So I'm talking to the head of the club and thanking him for coming. And so he says, because of the Puerto Rican festival, I live in Meriden. Mm-hmm. He said, I used to live in Massachusetts, and we have guys come in from New York and Massachusetts. And he said, I liked this park so much, and the way we were treated and the respect that we had, I moved here.
Right.
Now, who would ever expect that would happen?
Yeah. But I think especially when it comes to events and doing things, it comes down to money and what hoops you have to jump through. I remember last summer, Manny, who owns Bar 105 down the street on Colony Street, he had the cars that do their stereos. The whole back of the pickup truck is speakers and it lifts up. And it's crazy to see what people do and how much money they spend on their vehicles with this. And it was basically a car show of all this stuff. And he had a permit to do it. And all he did was get harassed by the police the entire day because the city had rented the green that day for a church event. Well, the church event obviously couldn't hear themselves speak because of all the radio. But all they did was harass him so bad that he said, you know what, I'm not doing this again. What am I going to do this for? And that was a really cool event. And it was the community. It was our ethnic side of our community, which you don't see a lot of things for. You look at the music on the green, which has been getting better and better every year. I'm sorry, it's old white people. That's who goes there. There's nothing for, okay, you do have the Cardona family, and stuff, but come on, let's face it. It's classic rock. There's so much new music out in Connecticut. Right. I talked to Robbie DeRosa, and I mean, he could go crazy with the bands that he could get on the green, but we stick with what's comfortable. Yeah. And I don't take you as somebody who's comfortable. You're not afraid to go and not be comfortable. We
outside
read it,
the box.
Yeah, we read it. Like, for instance, you have your weekly editorial in the Record Journal, and some of those things, I mean, you're very positive towards Meriden, but you're not afraid to be short-lipped and say what's on your mind, and a lot of people might take that the wrong way, but at least you're saying what's on your mind.
You will get what's on my mind. I'm very candid sometimes, maybe overly so. For some reason, and I think it's because of the profession I was in, running a children's home and dealing with kids from all different cultures and wanting to make sure that they are proud of themselves and where they came from. And at an early age, I just got that people needed to feel good in their own skin and feel good about who they are and where they came from. And I just went out of my way to try to make that happen for kids. And I have an ability to get out of my comfort zone. I've been in so many situations where I've been the only white guy in a black crowd, the only white guy in a Puerto Rican crowd, and I feel totally comfortable being there. Now, it didn't happen all at once, but over time, that happened to me. So, given that, I think that gets me in a place different from a lot of people who want to stay in their corners and kind of, for whatever reason, just hold back on things. So I think it served me well. I'm happy I've done it, and I think it's enriched my life tremendously.
And how's your Spanish?
Un poco.
Yeah.
Excellent. So leading with that.
About Meatball has good Spanish.
Estoy aquí.
I don't know what you just said. Speaking of honesty, I was working on a project where I had to look through a bunch of emails, FOIA emails from City Hall. And in those emails, I noticed that a lot of councilors were talking with City Manager Kanzer, and they were using bad language and mocking concerned citizens. So how are you thinking about addressing that, especially with the culture that's already at the City Hall, where we have this tension between city managers and council?
Yeah, well, there's always going to be conflict, and people are going to express it in different ways.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of criticizing others in public, particularly, whether it's fellow councilors or city manager, elected officials.
Right.
I think there's a time and place for that, and I think sometimes that gets out of hand. I think a lot of citizens make totally inappropriate comments. I had to sit through 23 years of public comment from certain people who get up there. Use guys this, use guys that. You're all a bunch of crooks. You're all corrupt. You all should be in jail. I mean, those are quotes.
When I'm talking, I know what I'm talking about all the time.
Yeah, there you go. Art Petrocelli running for at large.
Right, running
this
against
year.
me.
Running against you. That's your competition.
Yeah, but I'm talking about internal people. So the council and the city manager, I think Kenzer was at the time, and some of those emails I read, internal emails, were kind of very not professional.
Yeah. Councilors are human beings, too. You sit there and you listen to this stuff and being called names, being called crooks and corrupt and everything.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just want to give it back, you know, and I don't think that was in the newspaper. They were private comments. I don't say that's the best thing to do, but I can certainly understand where it's coming from, because you just sit there and take it and take it and take it, and from people who've never done anything that we could see as positive for this community.
Right.
But, you know, so, you know, criticism and dissension. So I would say, you know, any organization is going to have that. You see all this stuff with the emails in government all the time at all levels. It happens.
But how do you get everyone in line? So there's a lot of tension in City Hall right now because Guy Scaife and all the whole
I
council.
think transparency is the key. I think that kind of fixes everything.
Yeah, I think it comes from the top. I think professionalism and respect as a norm that you're putting out there for everybody, and you walk the talk.
Right.
I think that all helps. So I think you can set some guardrails up, so to speak, you know, so that people know kind of where the boundaries are. But in this day and age, you know, with our president the way he is, with no guide rails at all, and you see seeing what he does, calling people names and dividing people all the time. I think that feeds into, okay, that's licensed to go out and do that anywhere. If the president can say that and do that.
How can constituents, taxpayers, get answers? If they go to the city council meeting, they talk for 3 minutes, they can talk their heart out till they're blue, but the council just sits there and moves on.
They never get answers.
Yeah, so the reason we have that 3-minute rule is because years ago, when we had another mayor, and I'm talking many years ago, the meetings would go to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just go on and on and on and on and on, not productive. And people didn't want to run for office. They don't want to, you know, these people don't get paid hardly anything for this. They're working jobs, and they got to go and sit through this nonsense.
What does a counselor make? It's like $4,000 or something.
Well, it depends. I think it's like 24.
Oh, is it
2,400, something like that. But then if you're chairman of something, you get a little more, and whatever. And if you're in leadership, you get a little more. But it's not a heck of a lot. So you're not in it to make money, I can tell you that.
But what would the reason be that the counselors aren't? I mean, I think the 3-minute rule is great. I think it's perfect. It seems like it's plenty of time for most people to get their point across.
Right.
But why doesn't the council get to respond?
Because then you're going to be into, instead of a half hour, it's going to be an hour meeting before the council. We did set up a situation where once a month it was an open session. So we would keep the counselors there. You can talk about anything you want and have direct conversation. You know, so we did that for 6 months. Sometimes nobody showed up. Sometimes one person showed up.
Right.
So that didn't work. I mean, all counselors are available by phone and email. I think a lot of them are pretty responsive to that. Some maybe more than others. I think of Tony Tomasetti, who was like great on constituent casework. You get to Tony and you get things done quickly. I think, again, some are better than others than that.
Right.
A lot of people just see it in the street. I mean, a lot more people knew me than I knew them because I was on TV all the time. People stop me in the grocery store, when I'm walking down the street, when I'm playing golf. I mean, Mike, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Blah, 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 blah. And so I've always found myself to be readily available to anybody. I've never heard complaints that people couldn't get a hold of me or that I didn't talk to them. So I think some of them might be individual in terms of how they respond to people, but I think to say that you don't have the opportunity, not in this day and age when there's so many different ways to get a hold of somebody.
But should the city set up the means to provide answers if somebody has legitimate questions?
So we instituted the city manager, this goes back when I was mayor, would give a report at the end of the meeting that would pick up any issues that were raised, questions and so forth, respond to things, set the record straight and those kind of things. What's his name? Tim Coon's doing the same thing, if you've seen the meetings. So that does happen. And I think that's a plus because it didn't used to happen years ago. And it's like people were left there, well, does anybody hear us? Is anybody responding?
Right.
So, the city manager is the only employee of the council.
Right.
And so that person is the one responsible for operations, administration. A lot of the questions that come up have to do with that. They're not policy issues so much. It's like, why can't I get my street
Right.
paid?
Right.
Why can't I get the pothole fixed or whatever the hell it is? So anyway, I think that's somewhat of a response to your question, that there's someone who's paid to respond to administrative issues, and he does so.
I would love to see like
direct.
kind of what you said that you used to do, but maybe you have economic development, you have a city engineer, you have a mayor, and you have the manager. I don't even think you need the councilman there. I think it's peoples that could answer those questions. When is my street going to get paved? Why don't we have a traffic light here? How can you get these guys to stop standing on the corner street by my house?
Typical questions.
Maybe that's something that we could get going again.
Sounds like it's worth a shot.
Let's hit you up with real quick some of your thoughts on the current things that are going on in City Hall right now. So you've got the EverSource money, you've got the golf course banquet hall and the hangars at the airport, and now you've got the redirection of funds.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on some of those things?
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
You mentioned EverSource money. That
Yep.
was a mistake, made in the auditor's office. There was some changes made to the forms, and they didn't pick up on it and didn't do the right assessment.
But we had like 3 layers of overview over here, and every layer overlooked it.
Yeah, it was a missed opportunity. Now the good news is we didn't lose any money. We got it all back. The bad thing was, taxes raised more than they should have that year, and then we had the referendum and all that came from it. So that's not good. I mean, I don't like to see those things happen, but they do. And if it's bad enough, then there's accountability, for that.
Right.
The redirection of funds. So the way I understand it, the banquet hall they wanted to build on the golf course, half of that was going to be grant money and half of it was going to be a loan.
Yeah.
And they felt, well, wait a minute, I don't think we could possibly use the grant money for a banquet hall, but we know we could use it for paving roads. So they moved the money from the banquet hall to the paving roads, which means now if they want to do the banquet hall, it's 100% a loan, and it's going to take about 50 years to pay itself off. Yeah. So I guess don't even worry about the banquet hall and the airport. The redirection of funds, do you agree that they did that the right way or no?
They did not. The charter is clear on the authorization of funds for specific purpose. That's the purview of the council. I think they just thought they were moving paper around from one project to the next. Money didn't go in anybody's pocket. There's no theft involved. It was just, I think in hindsight you'd say, yeah, that's pretty obvious, but they missed that. So I was watching it carefully to see really what was that all about. Is it just a paper shuffle, or was there something really serious, a principle at stake? And I think the principle was where the authority lied to make those decisions, and they didn't engage that authority.
Was Lupkus in City Hall when you were a mayor?
Mm-hmm.
He was?
Yeah.
So does this fall on one person or a number of people?
I think it's a number of people, because there's a number of people with their fingers on that. Certainly city manager was involved, Lupkus was involved.
City buying banquet halls and building them.
Yeah. It's a little more complicated than that. In 1987, they redid the golf course because it was a pretty bad tract of land. There's no irrigation system in there. It was one of the worst courses in the area. Had some really bad holes that went downhill and back uphill. The older guys couldn't even walk up and down.
I've seen a lot of bad holes on the corner over by the City Hall.
So anyway.
Oh, wait, you said holes.
Holes, yes,
oh, holes.
yes.
Okay.
Golf holes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So anyway, the city made a major investment in redoing the course and swapping some land with Carabetta, and really made a A1 track out of it as a result. At the same time, they decided to build a new clubhouse and a new pro shop. And the clubhouse was restaurant on top and amenities for the golfers down below with a shower and so forth. They developed a plan knowing that it would be a 3-service operation. It would serve the golfers, it would serve the general public, and it would serve events. At the last minute, they cut it back by 25%. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself at that time, if I'm ever involved in a decision for the city that's long range, you're going to have 20, 30, 40 years of impact, I will never vote for something that's not the best we can do. Because you will pay for that for the next 20 or 30 years.
Right.
So that's how I look at these situations, not just today or tomorrow. It's like, we're going to be stuck with this for 20 or 30 years. Are we making the best decision, or are we just going to create a headache for ourselves? As far as the library, I was pushing for a teen center when I was on the council years ago. We're the only city our size doesn't have one, a dedicated space for teens. We had the opportunity to get it at not a whole lot of extra money. It's $4 a year per person. Come on.
Right.
You can't have a dedicated space for teens, especially all the stress they're going through these days and so forth. Now, I understand the financial side, and you got to be careful about how much it weighs on the taxpayer and so on. So you got to balance it all out. But I think taking the vision, 20 or 30 years. And another example is the Augusta Curtis Center. When I was chair of Public Works Committee, it was in disrepair. The roof was leaking. Very expensive proposition. Some people want it torn down. And I looked at it and said, what would people 10 or 20 years from now say to us as stewards of that building, a unique marble building, 100 years old, say that we had torn the damn thing down?
Right.
And I said, no, we cannot do that. It's not a good decision for our future. Some people want Meriden to be mediocre. They're fine with, let's throw the least amount of money, put a tarp on the roof and do something that's not going to be great, but it's good enough. I mean, that's been the history of this city. And I think we're better than that. I look at our city and say, who's got Castle Craig? Who's got Jafrita Park? Who's got Hubbard Park? Who's got the Green? Who's got all these things that we have? Certainly the surrounding towns don't measure up to that. And most cities in the state don't measure up to it. So I think we can reach higher than we have. And I think it makes us a better city, not necessarily tomorrow, but certainly in the next years ahead that we can all be proud of.
There's always more, right? More to want.
There's always more meatballs.
Of course, there's
You
always
have
more. I mean,
More meatballs?
there's
more meatballs.
This thing called change. It happens all the time.
Right.
And if we're in a position to improve ourselves and make us a better community going forward, and can do it, within the financial constraints that we have.
Right.
I mean, look at our high schools. Have you been in Platte Maloney?
Yeah, they're
Beautiful.
amazing.
I mean, they look like colleges, right?
Yeah.
And they're beautiful, and they have all the latest technology, and we're starting to see scores going up in different areas, which is good to see.
So what's next for Meriden? What does Mike Rohde want for Meriden next?
Well, I think economic development is key. That's why if I get back in, I'm going to serve on that committee. I think we need to.
Can we serve on it?
You could be advisors.
Yeah, dirty laundry advisors.
So we have some challenges because we have very little land available to us for what people want. We get calls all the time. Do you have 20,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet? No, we got a building that's got asbestos in it, and you got to gut it and pay for all that. So that's one big thing against us right now is available land to expand. So what does that mean? That means, okay, the land we have is land you got to reclaim, like we did with the Green.
Stop knocking the buildings down and rehab them.
Rehabbing is another way of doing it. And getting creative. Now, the POCD just had their meeting. I don't know did you go to that?
Yes, we were.
Okay, so you heard some of the thoughts about what's next in terms of how we position our city, to take advantage of various funding levels and different initiatives that are going on.
24 Colony Street.
Right.
Been vacant for 4 years now. It's just about 4 years. And we had all this promise of downtown and all these new spaces and new buildings and everything else. The building filled up right away with tenants, but there's not one new business in that downstairs area. And I think the problem is the more people drive by it, they don't even have the windows covered. You just look in and it looks like a construction site. It still has the work lights on all night long. And in my mind, that's no different than looking at the vacant building across the street from the ballroom that's falling down. It's blight. So what would you do to fix the 24 Colony Street problem? How would you get businesses in there? What do you think the problem is, and how do you fix it?
I think it's a carrot and stick situation. I think a missing piece of that was a time frame by which the owner of that building is going to have it filled and put some expectation either either as incentive to do so, or a stick that says, you're going to get some tax hit or something else
Right.
there. That did not happen. So, as I understand it, he's making enough money with the apartments.
Right.
He doesn't really. There's no incentive.
Well, and that's
for
that's
him to
I
move.
think the problem with most of the vacant properties is that the owners just don't care. Either
Right.
it's not costing them anything, or if it is costing them, they're making enough money somewhere else. How do we put pressure on these buildings?
I think-
Well, who overlooked it? First question: who overlooked that carrot and stick?
Well, it was a combination of the Maryland Housing Authority, the state of Connecticut, the city. I mean, there are 3 or 4 different
Right.
agencies that pulled that together, and that might have been part of the problem. There wasn't like
Right.
one entity that could really tighten this up. And I think maybe it's a lesson learned for the new projects that,
Hopefully.
if you have down. Now, look, I see Meriden Commons, they just opened the restaurant. I've
Yep.
heard they've got some other interest in some of their other space. I've heard there were a number of opportunities for the owner of 24 to do something, and he
Right.
didn't pull the trigger.
I've
on
heard
any
he
of
passed
it.
up on things.
Yeah, exactly. So it helps if you've got a cooperative owner who's incentivized or
Right.
otherwise. I mean, I look at that cage across the street that's keeping the bricks from hitting people in the
Yep.
head, and I'm dumbfounded how that hasn't been taken care of. I don't know
Right.
how in the world we promote the downtown, or you guys promote your stuff, when across the street you got
Yeah.
something that looks like a third world country.
Well, that's
Right.
a good example. So, all right, the building, I don't know the address, right across the street from Silver City Ballroom. It used to be Stylex. What did they make? Bras, I think. They made undergarments. Really cool looking buildings, Art Deco buildings, falling apart. A bunch of guys from Brooklyn own it. Then they started getting fined on a monthly basis. Now I believe they get the blight fine on a daily basis. Macri Roofing had to come out, and the city had to pay them to fix the roof because the roof was leaking and water was going across the sidewalk, and it was turning to ice in the winter, and people were falling. So there's a number of things with that. What do you do beyond the daily fine? These people may be millionaires and could care less about our $100 a day fine or whatever it is. What would be the next step in that for the city to fix that issue? Can you take it from them? Would you want to take it from them?
I've joked with people about this, saying you bring the biggest bulldozer you can, you set it up outside that building, and you put the timer on, okay? And you tell people if this thing isn't squared away in this amount of time, that bulldozer is going to start up and go right through there to the green. I think the city has to get really aggressive with these things, and I'm sick and tired of seeing buildings that are not taken care of. I mean, look at the building at East Main and Platt. The wall fell down how many years ago? And the
Right.
guys, that's in the front. That's our gateway
Yeah.
to the downtown. For
Right.
God's sakes, I think we need to be super aggressive with this. We get our attorneys involved. We sue them. We go to their houses where they live with signs saying you don't want your people to have signs and
Yeah, right.
this kind of behavior outside of your house. We don't like what you're doing to our city as well. I think we need to take more pride and get more serious about this. And I've been railing about this. I just sent a picture of that cage thing to
Yep.
Renata, the planner,
Yep.
before the meeting. I couldn't make the meeting. And I said, if we can't get this stuff taken care of, what's the point of even trying to market our city? Because,
Right.
it's impossible.
Let's start what would you call it? An aggression committee.
Yes.
An aggressive. Well, wait. What would you call
Aggression
it?
committee?
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like a militia, but somebody a committee of people that come up with ways to put pressure on. Well, no,
I'm
now
sure
we're getting
there's
into.
I'm
now
sure
it's
there's a
like-
zoning committee, no?
Yeah, I mean the mafia. There's plenty of ways to.
Well,
put
the city
pressure
can't run
on.
the mafia,
No,
that's,
well,
But the
yeah.
best antidote is to get good owners and good investors, just
Right.
like homeowners,
Right.
occupied homes, right?
But it's
People
a
take
chicken and
care
an
of
egg
them.
problem, no?
Yeah, it is.
So we gotta jump in somewhere in that circle and start improving, so we can circle back and reap the benefits.
Yes, exactly.
I say mafia. I think that's the key. All right. Well, this is our first show back. Our former
Yeah,
Meriden Mayor Mike Rohde. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
luck.
guys.
Good luck in the election.
Thank you.
And who should we have on next?
Who do you think we should have next?
Probably the mayor, right? He's running.
Well, no, we had him on
you
before.
had him before.
Before we went to the islands.
Okay.
Yep. No, well, he kind of inclined, kind of told us, yeah, I'm running, but Yeah, we had him on right before we went to the islands for the summer.
Right. He wasn't able to officially announce it just yet because of the party rules or whatever.
Well, you've got some good choice. You got people who are on the council running with experience. You got people brand new to politics. So you might want to look at the list and
who
see
can you push our way?
I think Crystal Blake is an interesting person for Area 3.
All right, we'll reach out.
I think she'd be a good person to talk to.
All right.
And she's running against?
She's running against Villano, Joe Villano.
Oh, who's that?
No, well, I'd like to get Joe Villano on. I'd like to get Michael Carabetta on. I would like to get a lot of, like you said, the newer blood on here and see what they have to say. And I guess we'll see if they want to be on. What do you think?
Sure, we'll try.
All right.
Fire those hard questions.
Yes, don't forget La Poblanita. They just opened a dining restaurant next door to their existing restaurant on Colony Street, right across from the vacant buildings at 24 Colony
They're
Street.
expanded for your pleasure.
Yeah, and if you want to be a guest on the show or you want to be a sponsor, dirtylaundryct@gmail.com.
Bye-bye.
That's enough.